Okay, so what happens when the raw energy of a street revolution runs smack into the reality of the ballot box? Well, that's exactly the story playing out in Bangladesh right now. We're going to break down how a student led uprising sparked this really radical plan to remake the entire nation and, why the country is now so deeply divided over its own future. So, to really get what's happening now, we have to rewind the clock a bit, back to the July August uprising of 2024. What kicked off as a student protest against what they saw as discrimination, well, it just exploded. It snowballed into this massive nationwide movement. People call it the July Revolution. And it all ended with a long standing government just falling. And that created this huge power vacuum and a national cry for real fundamental change. And that's the central question, isn't it? After the dust settles from such a dramatic upheaval, how do you actually rebuild? How do you take all that passion and energy from the streets and turn it into a new political reality? This was the exact challenge staring the country's interim government right in the face. Their answer? Well, it was to create a blueprint for reform, a document they called the July Charter. This was basically their attempt to capture the spirit of the revolution on paper and build a whole new political foundation, right from the ground up. So this is the July Charter, sometimes called the July Synod. And listen, this wasn't just some government decree. Nope. This was the result of months of dialogue, all guided by a National Consensus Commission. Then, on October 17th, 2025, representatives from 24 different political parties came together and signed it, hoping this would be a unified path forward. And the ambition here is, wow, it's just staggering. This wasn't some vague list of promises. The charter actually pulled together over 80 distinct reform proposals. We're talking about a top-to-bottom overhaul of the state, with almost half of those proposals needing changes to the Constitution itself. So what's it actually promise? Well, the big points are these. It formally recognizes the sacrifices of everyone in the 2024 uprising, calling them July Warriors. It lays out the plan for huge constitutional changes, restructures key state institutions to make them more independent, and it really aims for a more transparent, inclusive society, that new Bangladesh everyone was protesting for. And right at the heart of this charter are some truly radical changes to the country's core rulebook, the Constitution itself. This really shows you just how deep these proposed reforms go, and each one is a direct response to old problems. A two-house parliament? That's designed to break the winner-take-all system and give smaller parties a real say. A 10-year term limit for the prime minister? That's a direct shot at the country's history of leaders staying in power for ages. Making judicial appointments independent? That's a clear attempt to restore faith in the courts. And finally, changing the national identity from the ethnic Bengali to the civic Bangladeshi, that's all about building a more inclusive nation for every single citizen. But here's where it gets complicated. This big, ambitious plan for unity has actually revealed some really deep divisions. Yeah, 24 parties signed on, but not everyone is happy with the final document or how it was created. The loudest voice of dissent is coming from the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, or BNP. Now, they were part of the talks, but they're arguing that the final charter just doesn't reflect everything that was discussed. And as they see it, it's basically being forced on the nation. This quote from the BNP's Secretary General really sums up their whole position. He's saying that the points where they disagreed were just swept under the rug, and that the final recommendations ended up being one-sided. From their perspective, it seems like that whole consensus-building thing kind of broke down at the end. Let's actually break down these disagreements, because the details really show the power struggle going on here. Okay, look at the upper house of parliament. The NCC's plan is based on the total percentage of votes a party gets, which would help smaller parties. The BNP's plan, it's based on the percentage of seats won, which, surprise, surprise, would help bigger parties like them. Even the process for the neutral caretaker government, which is super important for fair elections, is a sticking point. These aren't just tiny details, they're fundamentally different ideas about who should hold the power. So you've got these fundamental disagreements. How on earth do you solve this? Well, the answer is to take it directly to the people. This timeline really puts it all into focus, from that uprising in 2024 to the signing of the charter in late 2025. Every single step has been leading to this one moment. In February 2026, the country is facing both a general election and a referendum on the charter itself. So what this means is, on Election Day, voters aren't just picking their leaders. They're also going to cast a single yes or no vote on this entire reform package.
This election has become a massive national referendum on the very DNA of the state.
And that leaves us with the ultimate question. The July Charter was born out of this popular demand for unity and change, but the journey to actually make it happen has created all these new political fractures. So now the decision is in the hands of millions of voters. Will they say yes to this blueprint for a new Bangladesh? Or will the disagreements prove to be just too deep to overcome?